The England captain, Owen Farrell, will take a break from international rugby union in order to prioritise his and his family's mental well-being. Well, former Burnley and Leeds defender Clarke Carlisle understands the pressure of being in the public eye. He struggled with his own mental health. Clarke, it's very good to see you. Thanks for coming on. How tough a call is it, if you're at the top of your game, just to admit that you need a break?
Good afternoon, Nick. You've summed it up correctly there. You know, it is a tough call because there are so many thoughts and considerations that go on around that decision. But I'm absolutely delighted that Owen and his family and all the people around in his unit have decided to put the man and his well-being first over any work duties or anything like that, because it would only be to the detriment of him and himself and his well-being in the future to do that.
Farrell is a tough player on the pitch. You were a no-nonsense defender when you needed to be, which is most of the time. Does that make it all the harder to come out and reveal why you need to take a step back, because people see you as the hard guy troubled by nothing, on the pitch at any rate?
Yeah, I was industrial at best. That's all tied in with I'm going to say archaic perceptions of what mental health and well-being is. You know, we've gotten to a point now in our society where we understand that we all live on this spectrum, on a continuum of mental health, and being able to have that foresight to intervene when you're getting to 4/3 out of 10, instead of making yourself get to 1 out of 10 and then have to provide for disaster recovery or crisis management. That was of our era and our time. It doesn't happen anymore. So those perceptions about your professional identity and your professional persona, we're now able to separate them from actually supporting the human being. And this is a fantastic example of that.
He mentioned, Farrell, in his statement, how he wanted to protect his family's well-being. Is that a particularly tough part, watching your own struggles impact the people you love most around you?
Well, most definitely, and it's we always talk about affected others as well. It's hard for the family members to watch someone who's experiencing adverse mental health, grit their teeth and white knuckle it through scenarios because they feel compelled to do so. So yes, it is a consideration. It's more a consideration when you're at a stage where you can consciously intervene. So this action by Owen Farrell, I massively applaud, and I really would advocate that other people who are experiencing, tough or troubling mental health or well-being to take action early. But there's an important point to be made, Nick, and an important distinction. There's often a fear, especially with guys of my generation and older, that perception that you articulated at the top of the interview, that still pervades, that people are going to judge you for this decision to take care of your well-being. And then you'll see a case like Owen Farrell or like myself, where you think, oh, and if I take a step, the world has to know. It doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to be like myself. You don't have to be like Owen Farrell. You don't have to tell the world that you're addressing your well-being status. But it's imperative that you tell someone, and the right someone, at the right time. And
I guess you never know who that someone is going to be. I mean, I know a little bit about your story. I've sat next to you over the years without knowing you had any sort of problem, and then you were, I think, approached by someone you called a good Samaritan, who gave you absolutely vital help, and I use that word advisedly. Do you think that people are now a little bit more aware, in the modern age, if I can call it that, of how many different sources of help there might be?
Yeah, more aware, but not competent enough to know, confident and competent enough to know exactly who to approach and when to approach them. And this is the level, this is the next level of understanding and awareness that we have to drive amongst our society. If I broke my leg, Nick, you wouldn't run in and say, oh, I watched Holby City last night, let me have a go. No, nor would you say, oh, Clarke, make a GP appointment tomorrow. You would call an ambulance because you'd know, A, it was an emergency, and exactly which level of service to address. That's the level of understanding, confidence and competence we need to know about people's well-being and adverse mental health issues. We need to know exactly when to call a GP, exactly when to go to a crisis team at A&E, and the difference between that and offering some kind of peer support.
How do you know, as an individual, and I'm thinking of Owen Farrell here, obviously, when is the right time to come back, if he wants to come back and give it another go in the international arena?
Oh, how do you know? What a brilliant question. Well, I would say that, again, it would be akin to asking, you know, what is his well-being recovery plan? There are 7 billion people on the planet. There's going to be 7 billion different points. So he will know when he's ready, as long as he fully engages with the well-being resources that are available to him. And it's not for me to surmise what that point would be. But I think another good question, and one that I really want to answer, Nick, if you'll allow me, is, you know, is having that insight. How did he know that he got to that point? He's got a level of self-awareness there where he knew that there was something to address. What got me to crisis point was that I didn't have that self-awareness. So what I ask myself now, and I think is a really good kind of litmus test for especially men of my generation and older who've tried to suppress emotions and dealing with trauma, when I have a heightened emotional response on any daily occasion, I ask myself, was that emotion appropriate, and was the depth of that emotion proportionate? And if the answer to either of those questions is no, then that informs me that there's probably something else going on that's provoked that response. And I think for guys like myself who've been emotionally illiterate for like 30 years up until the last 10 years, it's a really good starting point to have that self-awareness and understand when you need external objective input onto what's going on.
One final question. I know that your case is different from Owen Farrell's case. As you said, they're all different. But in his case, does it sound like social media, which is a great big umbrella term with all sorts of individual situations, but that was a big part of it?
Again, it'd just be speculation of the highest order, you know, to talk about his case in particular. I can take the line on social media, and I know that when you live a life that is, you know, ultra competitive, where external opinion has great weight on your employability, on your team selection, on your self-validation, then it can contribute negatively. In a great way, Nick, it really can, because, you know, it doesn't matter what you think when you come off the pitch. What matters is what the coach thinks and what the manager thinks and what the chairman thinks. That all informs your future selection and employability. So if you've got a platform where tens of thousands of people can directly approach you when you sat on your couch and give you their informed opinion, you know, it can be a huge way to think that you've got to convince those people on top of the other people who matter. So having the ability to section off social media, to be able to put those opinions to one side when you're judging yourself on your professional capacity, it's a skill that needs to be learnt.
Clarke Carlisle, pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.